Welcome back, everyone, to the Abundance Formula podcast. We're doing this a little differently this time. My computer Teams app was not working for some reason, so I'm doing it from my phone. So we're going to see how the sound ultimately is. I'm actually doing two recordings at once. This is just your live experience of a podcaster where I've got GarageBand recording and I'm doing it from Teams on my phone, and we're just going to see what we come up with. But we're here regardless. So you just find a way and make it happen despite whatever tech issues you may have. So welcome back. Today's episode, man, it's been a eventful last couple weeks, I feel like. Labor Day weekend was fun. Broke my toe that Sunday. First bone I've ever broken. So I feel like I'm doing pretty good since I've made it 35 years without having broken anything, torn anything, knock on wood, right? So, but that's all been good. That's starting to heal, working through it. That's all good. And some other, stuff that I'm about to tell you today, but it's interesting. Speaking of this process of healing, that's going to be actually the topic today, not of my toe, but on a deeper note. So the events of these last couple of weeks just reminded me that my word for this year has been fruitful. So I always pick, if you've listened to past episodes or follow me on social media, I always pick a word for the year, and it typically comes to me at the end of the year preceding it. So like at the end of 2023, when I'm starting to sit down and think about my goals or projections for the next year, I kind of sit down and pray about what might be my focus word for the next year. And so the word that immediately came to me for 2024 was fruitful. And so it has been, which has been amazing. But what some of the things that have come up over the last couple of weeks is when things are really fruitful, which is great, especially this year, things have been very fruitful in business. But what you don't realize is just as much as we all highly accept that when you're sowing seeds and you're trying to nurture seeds and you're trying to create this harvest that will come about, we know that's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. We know that's a lot of work, but we don't always think about on the back end how harvesting that fruit is also another version of work in itself. And so it can take a lot of work, although you're excited about it because there's fruit. But still, if you've ever been to an apple orchard and you're picking apples, it's a great experience. But at some point when you're carrying all these heavy baskets and you're looking around, you're like, how many more apples are there? Like, I kind of hope these trees stop having apples, right? Or I hope that our baskets are finally full. And so it's definitely this balance back and forth of like, you're grateful and thankful to be gathering the fruit, but it is also hard. But I was starting to feel more worn down than I felt like I should be, and internally, and I was just feeling super tired, not just from the actual efforts, but it just felt like I was tired on a deeper level. And so I started doing some reflecting and thinking, okay, I feel called to carry even more fruit in these metaphorical baskets, if you will. But I had this deeper knowing that like these baskets that I'm carrying all this fruitfulness in are only so strong. They're kind of at their max capacity because I still have some holes left. I have some holes in these baskets. And for me personally, this is because through the course of the last 15 years of my life, there's been many traumas that I never took the time to truly heal from, to deal with, to sit through in therapy. I had done a little bit of therapy here or there, but it was always a really hard process. And I just didn't have the time, or whether I didn't feel like I had the time to deal with it emotionally or mentally or literally. I definitely didn't give myself the space because I felt like those around me needed me to be sort of a stronghold, needed me to be an emotional foundation, a strong anchor, if you will. And if everybody involved was losing it, like somebody needed to kind of hang on and be able to pull people out. That was kind of the role that I felt like I fell into at that point. So I just never made time. And then of course you get busy and you just get used to this sweeping things under the rug. I was very aware there were things under the rug or in this box, if you will. And I just kind of kept adding them in. And if the pressure of the lid was getting to its max, then I would just add some more locks and keys to it. And so it started hitting me over the last, more than a couple of weeks, but really came to its like peak these last couple of weeks. But that I'm like, okay, I feel called to carry more fruit, but these baskets are not good enough. Like there are holes, and I need to address that. I need to have a stronger basket if I'm going to carry this next level fruit that I feel is coming, because what's already in here is heavy. And I was starting to get frustrated knowing there was more, but like my basket wasn't whole. So all of that to say that I actually committed to and started therapy a couple of weeks ago to start addressing and healing these past traumas. And I was actually really excited about the therapist that I'm using because she's a specialist in EMDR. That's a whole nother podcast topic on how just really cool that process is, but it's a very deep brain reprogramming, memory reprocessing type system of treatment. And I'm excited because she's a Christian woman. In my opinion, when you're doing that deep level of reprogramming of your brain and addressing traumas, that for me, I wanted that to be somebody who aligned with my spiritual beliefs, because healing is a spiritual process. And so the first session basically is always just kind of getting to know each other. But so then last week I had my first EMDR session, and my husband and I joke, I'm like, okay, now Jeana's unhinged. Like, everybody better watch out, because even over the last weekend, like being in therapy and finally opening up this box, if you will, it's like it can't be closed anymore. I'm like, everybody, I'm sorry, but my filter is like gone now. Like, so I just like, if there's just raw honesty that just can't be contained anymore. And so whether that be of feelings, like I've done so much more crying over the past week than I have probably in my life, because that was also just something I didn't make time. Like there wasn't time for me to show or let that kind of stuff out, because everybody else around me was doing that and losing it. And I just was like, I've got to be this stronghold. So again, just even starting therapy, this like full outpouring of progress in relationships and life concepts and these things, and getting these, I mean, some of these tears are just this old packed down emotions that have just been flooding out. But so I wanted to talk today about this healing process, because I'm starting the healing process because I know deep down that if I'm to heal, then I'm actually going to be able to reach my full capacity. And our level of fruitfulness can really only go beyond, like can't go beyond any further than if you heal some of these things that maybe we've tucked away in a box or swept under the rug. And a lot of times, again, we're willing to put in the effort that it is for sowing seeds and the farming process, if you will. But when we look at healing, and then when it hurts, we're like, ooh, this can't be good. Like this, we better just move on from this and come back later. But what we don't realize is, just as much as the process of receiving an injury or a pain hurts, recovery is also painful. But the pain is serving a purpose. You know, if you like, you could quite literally be bleeding still, you know, after the birth of a child, you're still bleeding, despite that you might have been sewn back up, but it's just part of this recovery process. And so we've got to remember that this reprocessing, this healing, is something we have to commit to enduring the pain of, in order to get to the promise of a better life afterwards, the promise of abundance that we were all meant for, the promise that we have a higher purpose that we're meant to fulfill. And you just cannot fulfill it to your full capacity if there's still unhealed hurt and traumas within. So one thing I wanted to also talk about today is that it is hard to not resent the process. It's hard to, you know, want to put in that hard work and that sacrifice and not want to just skip ahead of things, right? We want to always skip ahead and shortcut things nowadays, especially because we, you know, feel like we have the capacity to. But when you've actually put in that hard work and sacrifice that truly goes into becoming the person you're called to be, then you're actually able to view, manage, and treat the destination of that blessing with the reverence and the perspective and the responsibility that's needed to keep that, than if you skipped the process. Because honestly, we all know that like fast track success doesn't typically last. if you will. You can't just watch NFL football and then throw a jersey on and walk out there and think you can just go out there and play NFL level football. So if we're thinking of that in regards to your level of purpose, like as your level of purpose and impact is meant to grow, there is training and experience and process that you have to be able to go through and endure in order to get to the place that you can truly hold that position with respect and capabilities, even even to have the proper tools to do it at the best of your ability and to do it at all. And so another really great analogy for this that I'd heard from this pastor that you guys know that I love, T.D. Jakes, he says, there's a richness and flavor that you cannot get through a microwave process. And it's not microwaved process that fills your soul. And microwave success definitely is not reaching our full potential. So the quote that's kind of my theme for this episode today that just really hit me that I'd found the other day from T.D. Jakes was, to commit yourself to the process means you respect the artistry behind the calling. And I thought that was just so powerful. To commit yourself to the process means you respect the artistry of the calling. You respect the artistry that is situating yourself, sewing back up your basket so that you can truly become what you're meant to be and to hold the responsibility, the leadership, the impact, the love, the compassion for the relationship you want, the career that you want, the spiritual life you want, all the things that we aspire to create in our lives or make of our lives and our legacy comes down to being willing to both persevere in the times of pain when pain is being inflicted, but then to commit to the recovery process, the healing process, so that we can be put back together stronger even, and more impactful and more capable than we would have been without the struggle. And so I know that it's hard to not resent the process of being within the becoming. The becoming process is really difficult, but just know that it's merely the tilling of that foundation for the next harvest to come. And that even though it hurts, it's a necessary part. And our mind does want to trick us, or even the devil, if you will, that, digging up your past traumas or facing them is just breaking you down. But really it's putting you back together. It's putting you back together whole and not half patched. And there will be ebbs and flows when we get to have the feel good, yummy tasting parts of the fruits of our labor. For sure, there are plenty of those highs. But we've got to just remember that both the labor and the process, the part where the seeds have been planted, they're putting in the work and resilience to come bloom in the due season, that like all of that is part of this process. And that even in the harvesting season, there's another challenge. And like for me, for example, I'm in a fruitful season, but it's revealed to me that there's healing that needs to be taken place to actually go to the next level. And so sometimes that might come up for you all, that like things might be going well, but you're called for more and you might be frustrated or feel stuck. Like these are some of the things you can look into in your own life. Maybe this is why I feel stuck, because there's some stuff I've put in a box and I need to go address those things in order to truly be able to have all the fuel I need to go to the next level. So I know we expect that from labor, but when it comes to healing, like I said, every week I kind of dread going back to there because it's hard and you're just like, oh my gosh, like again, I said, I feel unhinged. Like I can't like keep my mouth shut now when certain things come, things that I would have just taken. If somebody said something, I would have just taken it and maybe just put it in that box or whatever, swept it under the rug. And it's just like my brain will not allow it right now. It's just at max capacity. And it's like trying to put things in the correct filing cabinet and it just won't add any more to these trauma cabinets. It just won't do it. And so it's like scary to me to keep going back. So I'm like, how much crazier am I going to get? How much crazier am I going to get? But it is in a good way. It's me being more honest. It's me taking less BS. It's me like seeing myself as like, I matter enough not to just keep putting all these things in this box and just adding more locks to it. And so, I just keep going back every week. I don't even know what the projection of what me healing looks like or what being healed on the back end looks like. I don't even know, but I know it's something that's necessary for me, and I know it's part of this process to get me to even the next level. And so I'm showing up for it. I'm committed to the process. And I'm comforted knowing that, thinking about these kinds of analogies, like when you've had a surgery, when you birth a child, like there's the reality that you're literally bleeding, whether in your mind, heart, or soul. But that doesn't mean you're not recovering. That doesn't mean you're not healing, and you're making progress towards being made new and being refreshed again. So I just wanted to pop on and do this episode on healing to just both be relatable to you guys, to know like I'm both, you can be in dual spaces of feeling like you're in a good, especially on the external to other people, in this great place in life, which is true, but there can also be more things needing to be done to truly tap into the level of abundance that you're meant to. And so to just be relatable in that and let you know you're not the only one, that probably over the course of your life, to be able to keep going and to keep your ducks in a row and like be manageable, that you've swept things under the rug, that you didn't feel there was time for your healing, that you could be supportive of everybody else getting on track, but there really wasn't time for you to do that till everybody else got better. Or that if you felt unhinged, or if you felt not put together in all of your emotions, that somehow that would throw everybody else off in a really bad way and make their situation worse. So you just decided to not do that. Like, I get it. And I know that might have worked for a while, but you will reach a threshold like me at some point where you're like, you want things to be even better in your life, and it's kind of tapped out where it's at unless you get down into that box. And it's a scary place. It's a scary place because once that box is opened, like if you're like me and there's so much in that box, so much pressure in that box is built up, like once that box lid is open, it cannot be shoved back down. So you got to just stay committed to that process, to sorting it through, and just just keep going one step at a time. Like I said, I don't know what it looks like to be on the back end yet, because I'm just in the beginning phases of this journey, but I already feel lighter inside, even with all the crazy emotions coming out. If anything, that's good, because like I just can't even like shove them down anymore. So that's a good thing. All that internal pressure and like extra tiredness is filtering out. I'm still super tired, like mentally I'm very tired, because it's a lot of work to dig down into your brain and address these old things. But it's a different kind of tired. I can tell it's progressive tired. It's going somewhere. I can tell it's getting all this stuff out of my body that does not need to be there and that was holding me back. So it's definitely moving me forward. And I thought it was just kind of a neat concept for you guys to maybe think about as well, is that, respect the process, and that the fact that you have to go through the process and you can't skip it, and you don't want to skip it, because I know if you're listening to this podcast, you don't want microwave success. You want real abundant success. You want greatness. You want to be extraordinary and make extraordinary impact. So I know that if you're listening, you are committed to your becoming season. And also, one of the most helpful things that you can do in this time is to not compare your becoming season to maybe somebody else's harvest season, where maybe they've already gathered all their apples and it's just the enjoyment process of their season. That's great. You're going to get there too. I'm going to get there too. But don't be busy comparing. Spend your energy on whatever phase you're in right now. And it might be a different phase depending on what area of your life we're even talking about, your relationships, your career. It may be a couple things at once. It could be any of the things. But I want you to just hear one more time my key quote for the episode from TD Jakes, which is, to commit yourself to the process means you respect the artistry of the calling. So write that down if you need to. And when it gets hard to go through your healing process, or to face these things, or have difficult conversations, or to even keep up climbing those trees and grabbing more apples and filling your baskets, like whatever effort phase you're in, just remember that and know that you're not alone. We're all going through it in some way. So I'm here for you. Hopefully this was a helpful episode. Make sure you share it if you enjoyed it in any way. Make sure that you leave a 5-star review if you have not. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye, everyone.